Dubai International Airport sits on flat ground barely 15 feet above the sea, but on a Tuesday morning in April 2024, the water on its apron was deep enough to stop the trucks. The apron is the flat concrete where planes park, and that is where an airline either makes money or loses it. Ground staff waded past the wheels of parked planes in wet boots. Over the days that followed, the airport canceled 1,244 flights and left people asleep on the terminal floor. Insurers across the country ended up counting the damage in billions of dollars. Rain is not the strange part. Dubai gets rain most winters. Every desert city does. You can smell one coming an hour ahead, a cold, dampened air that is usually dry as paper. The strange part is that Dubai had already built for it. A deep tunnel storm system opened under the city in 2021. The tunnels under Dubai drain roughly 40% of it. The tunnels were running that morning. Water still came over the curb on Sheikh Zayed Road, into car parks and ground floor shops, and into the stairwells of towers handed over the year before. 5 people died in the United Arab Emirates that week. Dubai municipality is now spending 30 billion dirhams on a fix called Tasreef. The work finishes in 2033. Stand outside on a wet morning in the Gulf, and the air feels heavy on your skin. The smell of wet dust comes up off the ground before anything else. Then comes the sound of water in places that are usually dry. To understand what happened that Tuesday, you have to know what a storm drain is actually for. Start with a figure that engineers call the design storm. Every storm drain on Earth is sized for a rainfall number, not for all rainfall. The pipe diameters, the pump ratings, and the road gradients all fall out of that number. A drain built for a heavier storm needs more concrete, more digging, and more land above it. Somebody in a city office picks the figure that the budget will carry. Every extra inch of pipe diameter is paid for in concrete and in closed roads. So every city on Earth picks a number it can afford and accepts that anything above the number will run down the street instead. Dubai picked its figures for a desert. The National Center of Meteorology puts average yearly rainfall across the country near 200 millimeters at the top end. In American terms, that is roughly 8 inches in a year. On the 16th of April, the gauge at Dubai International Airport recorded 164 millimeters. In American terms, that is 6.45 inches. A year of rain fell on the airport in about a day. Out at Cotton al-Shakla, near Al Ain, the gauge read 254.8 millimeters. All of it fell in under a day. The National Center of Meteorology called it the heaviest rainfall since records began in 1949. Here is what those numbers mean for a pipe. A network sized for a whole year of desert rainfall was asked to carry 6 inches in an afternoon. Nothing in the ground had failed. The pipes under the road did exactly what pipes do. The ground was simply never built for that much water at once. There is a phrase that comes up every time this happens, and it does more harm than good. Engineers call it a 100-year storm. The phrase does not mean a storm that turns up once a century. It means a storm with about a 1% chance of appearing in any given year, judged from whatever rainfall records a country happens to hold. The figure goes onto an engineer's desk, and a pipe diameter comes out the other side of the calculation. A bigger number there costs the residents of that city money, years before a single drop of rain arrives. In parts of the United States, those records run back well over a century. The National Center of Meteorology has only been keeping them in this corner of the world since 1949. A shorter record makes for a shakier number, and the drain gets sized from that number anyway. This channel takes apart big projects, piece by piece. Subscribe to PT-Team. The ground comes next. Now the ground under Dubai. 3 things about it make water worse here than it would be in a hillier place. The first is that Dubai is flat. Water needs a slope to leave, and a flat coastal plain gives it almost none. The second is the surface of Dubai itself. Desert sand under a hot sun bakes into a hard crust, and a crust sheds water instead of soaking it up. Put asphalt and paving on top, and a heavy shower behaves like rain falling on a car park roof. The third is the water table under Dubai. Groundwater in parts of Dubai sits close to the surface, and it is salty groundwater at that. A pipe cannot drain into ground that is already full of water. Now the morning itself. The rain started late on Monday, and the sky over Dubai was dark by breakfast. Schools had already moved to remote learning. Government staff were told to work from home where they could. Plenty of people still drove. Deliveries do not stop. Hotel shifts do not stop. A great many workers in Dubai cannot do their job from a laptop on a kitchen table. By mid-morning, the underpasses were filling. Water finds the low point in a road, and in a flat city, the low points are the tunnels and the ramps. A car stalls in the dip. A second car stalls behind it. Now the lane is a pond, with vehicles standing in it. Sheikh Zayed Road runs 12 lanes wide in places, and the road is the spine of the whole city. Footage from that afternoon shows saloon cars up to their door handles on the service roads beside it. Not on the main carriageway, which sits higher. On the service roads, where the shops are. Now the airport, where the day turned into a story for people who had never set foot in Dubai. Dubai International is the busiest airport in the world for international passengers, and Dubai International runs close to full on an ordinary day. Running close to full means there is no slack anywhere in the schedule. Water on the apron stops the tugs and the baggage trains long before it stops the aircraft. A ground handler at Dubai International cannot push a loaded dolly through standing water. A fuel bowser cannot safely reach a stand. Once the ground crews stop moving, the aircraft stop moving, and the delay travels down every onward connection in the network. Every hour a plane sits still costs an airline money it will never get back. Picture the job for a moment. A ramp agent at Dubai International works the shift in a high-visibility vest with ear defenders on, moving bags between a belt loader and a container. The apron underfoot at Dubai International is concrete, and it drains toward shallow channels cut into the slab. Those channels swallow an ordinary winter shower without anybody on the ground noticing. That Tuesday, the channels were full before the first shift clocked on. Water on a working apron is not simply wet. Painted lines disappear under it, and the marshalling marks that keep a wing clear of a jet bridge stop being usable. Ground power units sit low on trolleys, with cables running along the slab. A driver who cannot make out a curb under standing water will find it with a wheel. So the ramp at Dubai International shuts down, not because a manager panicked, because every rule for working around aircraft assumes the crew can see the ground they are standing on. The airport canceled 1,244 flights in all. Another 41 aircraft were sent to other cities. Passengers slept on terminal floors, queues built at counters with nothing to offer, and some travelers waited more than a day for a seat home. The Emirates Group suspended check-in for departing passengers for a period. Workers at the check-in counters had nothing left to sell. A hub airline cannot simply pause and pick up where it left off. Every cancelled seat is revenue that never comes back to Emirates. Every aircraft that does not fly is in the wrong place the following morning, and the recovery runs for days after the sky clears. A crew that runs out of legal hours in Dubai cannot simply fly out that night either. The Dubai Metro kept running for most of that day, which is a real credit to the people who built it. About 200 commuters were stranded at stations when service was cut, which is a small number for a city this size. The metro is elevated along much of its route, and elevated track does not flood. The roads did. The Roads and Transport Authority suspended intercity coaches between Dubai and Abu Dhabi. The same happened on the Sharjah and Ajman routes, which are the routes thousands of workers ride every day to reach a job in Dubai and a bed somewhere the rent is cheaper. Here is the part of the day that is easiest to skip past. A municipal worker driving a water tanker was swept into a wadi and killed. 3 Filipino residents died in the country that week. An elderly Emirati man died as well. 5 people. That number is the honest total for the week, and it belongs in the middle of this story rather than at the end. Now the night, which almost nobody photographed. Tanker crews across Dubai worked in shifts, pumping water out of underpasses and car parks and basement plant rooms. A pump truck shifts a few thousand gallons an hour. There were hundreds of them working across the emirate, and some basements in Deira and Al Quoz were still being pumped a week later. Think about what a pump truck in Dubai actually is. A tank on a chassis with a diesel engine and a hose. Every gallon a Dubai municipality tanker lifts has to be driven somewhere else and released. A city the size of Dubai that has to pump by truck is a city whose pipes are already full. Then the bill arrived, and the bill is where the Dubai flood stops being a weather story. The reinsurance broker Guy Carpenter and Company put insured losses across the country at roughly $3 billion. Insured losses are not total losses. Insured losses are only the share that somebody held a policy against. Cars made up a large part of it. A flooded car is usually written off because water in the wiring loom and the airbag system is not worth chasing. Thousands of vehicles went straight to scrapyards, and the used car market in Dubai tightened for months afterwards. Now the ground floor units, which is where the quiet losses sit. A small shop or a salon in Dubai keeps its stock at floor level and its sockets low on the wall. Water at ankle height writes off both of them in an hour. A tenant in that position faces 3 bills at once. The stock is gone. The fit-out has to be stripped back to bare block and dried before anything can be rebuilt. And the rent keeps running, because a lease does not pause when a street floods. Insurance helps when the policy covers flood, and a lot of small commercial policies in the region did not. Owners who did hold the cover found claims teams working through thousands of files at the same moment. Some businesses were open again in a fortnight. Others never came back at all. Then came the government response. A week after the storm, Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum announced 2 billion dirhams to repair the homes of citizens damaged by the rain. By the standards of any government anywhere, the money in Dubai moved quickly. Read that sentence again, because the word carrying the weight is citizens. The program was written for Emirati nationals. About 90% of the people living in the country hold another passport, and a tenant whose ground floor flat took on water had a landlord and an insurer to argue with instead. None of that was hidden in Dubai, and none of it was presented as a secret. Support schemes for nationals are normal across the Gulf. But the wording does answer the question of who carried the cost in Dubai, and a large share of the answer is people with no route to a claim. Which brings us to the argument everybody had for the fortnight afterwards. Cloud seeding. The United Arab Emirates does seed clouds. A pilot flies into a suitable cloud, and a technician releases salt flares to help droplets combine. The program has run for years, and it has never been a secret. The meteorologists who studied the storm said seeding did not cause it. You cannot seed a cloud that is not already there. The system was a large, low-pressure area crossing the region, and it dropped record rain on Oman as well, where no comparable seeding program exists. Seeding cannot build a storm of that size out of dry air. A driver whose car was written off that week did not lose it to an aircraft with a flare rack. The cloud seeding argument is worth taking seriously for a single reason. The seeding argument let everybody argue about the sky instead of the ground. And the ground is the part that a city government can actually change with a drain and a budget. Now the fix. 10 weeks after the flood, Sheikh Mohammed approved a program called Tasreef. Dubai municipality is running the work and holds the budget. The headline numbers are worth saying slowly. Tasreef is designed to raise the drainage capacity of Dubai by 700%. At full build, the network is meant to move more than 20 million cubic meters of water a day. Peak flow is meant to reach 230 cubic meters per second. Dubai municipality says the design horizon is the next 100 years. The completion date is 2033. Hold on to that date, because the date is the real antagonist in this story. Not the rain, not the seeding aircraft, a calendar. Somebody will drive to work through every one of those winters on the same roads. Between the approval and the finish line sit 9 winters. Every one of them arrives at a city that has, in the meantime, the drainage it had on the day of the flood, plus whatever has been finished since. Residents in the worst-hit districts of Dubai will watch trenches open outside their own buildings for years. And things have been finished. In 2025, Dubai municipality awarded a first package of Tasreef contracts. The value ran into billions of dirhams. The package covered 9 areas of the city. Nad al-Hamar and al-Garhoud and al-Rashidia were on the list. So were Al-Quoz and Zabil and Jumeirah. A resident in any of those districts will find the road outside dug up at some point. More than 36 kilometers of new drainage lines were included in that first round of work. In 2026, the municipality awarded a second and larger package of Tasreef work. Crews finished the first phase in Al Quoz by April this year. The Dirham scheme was reported at 36%, with the trenches open along streets that shopkeepers still had to trade on. There is work going in where the city is still being built, too. In 2025, Dubai Municipality signed an agreement with Dubai South for a stormwater tunnel serving that district, out toward Jebel Ali. Laying drainage before the buildings arrive is far cheaper than digging under a live street. That is the one place where a city can still get ahead of the problem. So the work is real and the work is moving. The point is not that Dubai is doing nothing. The point is that a drainage network is not a switch on a wall. Every kilometer has to be dug under a street that people are still driving on, and the streets do not empty for the convenience of a contractor. How far does the evidence actually go here? 3 steps, and it is worth marking exactly where it stops. The first step is that the existing network was overwhelmed by a storm far above its design figure. Nobody disputes that. The water standing on Sheikh Zayed Road settled that argument in an afternoon. The second step is that Dubai has committed serious money to fix it, on a schedule that runs to 2033. Both the budget and the date are published facts with documents behind them. The third step is a judgment rather than a document. A city built at speed on flat sand, with a high water table and almost no natural drainage, depends unusually heavily on pumps and pipes, doing exactly what they were sized to do. When the rainfall goes above the design figure, the water has nowhere to go but sideways through the built environment. What the evidence does not support is a prediction. Nobody knows whether the next storm of that size arrives in 2027 or long after Tasreef is finished. Anyone who gives you a date is guessing. Now the same problem in New York, written in different units. The New York City Department of Environmental Protection has published the figures. Most sewers in Queens were built before 1977. Those pipes carry about 1.5 inches of rain per hour. The current standard for new sewer construction across New York is around 1.75 inches per hour. An owner in Queens has no way to know which of those numbers applies under their own street. Hurricane Ida reached New York in September 2021. The storm dropped 3.15 inches of rain on Central Park in a single hour. In parts of the city, the rate touched 3.75 inches. Water came up through basement floors, and people died in basement apartments in Queens. Basement flats there rent cheap for a reason, and the reason is water. The numbers there are smaller than the numbers in Dubai. The mechanism is identical. A pipe carries what it was sized to carry, and when the rain goes above that figure, the excess does not wait politely. Water goes into the lowest room it can find, and somebody is usually living in that room. So the question is not really whether Dubai overreached. The question is which design figure your own city used, and in which year somebody chose it. Somewhere under Al Quoz tonight, a machine is boring, a new stormwater line through wet sand. The traffic overhead is moving normally. The drivers have no reason to think about a pipe, and the pipe is being paid for out of the same public budget that repaves their street. They will not think about any of it again until the next time the sky opens over a city that was built for 8 inches a year. This video reviews public statements, official announcements, and published records, and it is not an inspection or a forecast of any specific event. Full sources and dates are in the pinned comment. Here is the question worth arguing about. When a city spends 9 years upgrading its drains, who is supposed to carry the cost in the meantime? Say it in the comments, and subscribe to PT-Team if you want the next one.